this lesson, I want to talk to you about perfectionism. And the reason I want to talk to you about this is because this is something that a lot of creatives struggle with, and it's something that I've personally struggled with and still have to manage from time to time in my own creative practice. So I wanted to start this lesson with a quote, and this is one of my favorite quotes from Elise Cabret. She's the author of Big Magic and Eat, Pray, Love. I think perfectionism is just fear in fancy shoes and a mink coat, pretending to be elegant when it's actually just terrified. Because underneath that shiny veneer, perfectionism is nothing more than a deep existential angst that says again and again, I'm not good enough and I will never be good enough. So I want you to have a think about that as we move through this lesson. What is perfectionism? So the dictionary definition of perfectionism is a refusal to accept any standard short of perfection. I'm going to go through some of the symptoms. See if you can relate to any of these. An all or nothing kind of person. Anything less than excellent feels like complete failure. Highly self-critical or critical of other people. Focus on mistakes rather than achievements. That's a big one for a lot of us. Setting unrealistic goals and expectations, and when you fail to meet them, you feel not good enough. Is this something that you can relate to? The myths of perfection. Now, it took me a long time to overcome perfectionism, and that's basically because I believed for a very long time that perfectionism was what was making me do my best. It was what was motivating me to achieve the best I could. And this is a lot of the way, this is the way a lot of perfectionists feel about perfectionism. They're actually quite protective of it, as if it makes them a better person. But I really want to bust this myth in this lesson because it's simply not true. There is a very big difference between having high standards and being a perfectionist. So high standards are what push us to do our best, and there's nothing wrong with having high standards. In fact, we want to have high standards. We want to achieve the best we can and reach our potential, right? So for an example of having high standards might be, I'm going to go and write 3 of my best songs yet and record an EP. So that's a big challenge. That's going to really challenge you to be the best you can be, but it's certainly an achievable goal. Perfectionism. Having unrealistic or impossible standards. For example, I'm going to write a song as good as insert your favorite artist, and it will become a #1 hit. Now, this is an unrealistic and potentially impossible standard. Why? Because first of all, it's comparing you to a very established musician and someone you idolize, and also it is absolutely outside of your control. Whether your music becomes a #1 hit or not, there's things you can do to work toward that, but it's ultimately that is outside of your control. When I first started writing songs, I was absolutely obsessed with Metallica. They were my favorite band growing up, and they were the reason that I started playing guitar and I started writing songs. So when I first started writing songs, I was about 14 years old, and I had set the standard for myself of writing songs as good as Metallica. All right, never written a song before, but my first song had to be as good as musicians that had been at this for 30 years. That is an unrealistic standard. It's also a catch-22 because anytime I wrote something that did kind of sound like Metallica, I couldn't use it because then I felt like I was copying them. It wasn't my own work. So there was no way that I could win. Setting unrealistic standards ensures that you're going to feel not good enough over and over again. And your self-talk is going to be coming up with phrases like, everything I write is shit. I'm really bad at this. Nothing I do sounds good. I should give up. Who do I think I am? Why even bother? Have you ever had any thoughts like this? They're not fun, are they? Unfortunately, this is something that most creatives experience, and it's something that we have to learn to manage. The truth is, perfectionism doesn't push you to succeed. It does the opposite. This took me a very long time to learn. Perfectionism is actually a form of fear, and it's designed to protect you from failure. When we set impossible standards, impossibly high standards, we ensure that we can't actually meet those standards. Okay, so for me to write a song as good as Metallica when I'd never written a song before was impossible. So I could never actually achieve that. Which means I could never actually finish a song. right? Which means I never actually needed to put myself out there because I never had any songs to show anyone. Which means no one could judge me and I never had to fail. Now, this actually kind of works. If you never actually finish a song, so you never have to put yourself out there, you never have to experience failure, I mean, it's pretty foolproof. It does work. But being trapped in this endless cycle of trying to work on something but never actually getting anywhere with it is extremely frustrating. As we saw, it generates a lot of negative self-talk, it wears us down, it takes all the fun out of the creative process, and we never actually get any better because we're never really allowing ourselves to make mistakes. We can't learn from them. The take-home message here is that perfectionism isn't what is going to make you the best you can be. That is a myth. Perfectionism is just fear in fancy shoes, as Elizabeth Gilbert so eloquently puts it. And the purpose of fear is just to protect you. It's your brain trying to protect you against that fear of failure or fear of judgment from other people or even yourself. Now, it's really important that you're aware of this and you can call your perfectionism out for what it is. If you don't, you're going to get stuck in that loop forever of always working on things but never being able to get them to a point that you can share them with other people or ask for feedback. Okay? So in order to move past perfectionism, you need to be able to convince yourself, your brain, your editor that's talking at you, that self-talk, you need to be able to convince it that it's okay for you to be mediocre. You don't have to be amazing all the time, and you definitely don't have to be amazing straight away. Being mediocre is an essential part of the learning process. And I'm going to talk about that in some more detail using a story. Hey there, it is Elise here, just briefly interrupting your lesson today to tell you about my brand new online songwriting course, The Song Prescription. The lesson you are currently doing right now is from that course, so if you're enjoying it, you will find over 40 more lessons just like it inside that course. These lessons will take you through the songwriting process step by step, and I will be there at your side every step of the way. And for a very limited time, I'm actually offering students of this course direct access to me as their personal songwriting coach. So if you've got specific questions that are holding you back in your songwriting, you'll be able to ask me directly. Sound good? If you'd like to know more, just click the link in the description. Now let's get back to your lesson. For this story, I want to invite you to use your imagination for a moment. So imagine that a little kid has just been given some new pencils and they've been drawing all afternoon, and they draw this picture of a dog. Okay, very cute. And they go up to their parent and they say, look what I've drawn. It's a picture of the dog. And they're waiting for that parent's approval and praise. And that parent turns around and says, wow, look how great this is. You've done such a good job. This is really, really cool. Well done. You know what? This is going straight to the fridge. And the parent pins it up pride of place on the fridge. Immediately, that kid is beaming with smiles, feeling really good about themselves, and they can't wait to get back to their pencils to draw another picture. And that's exactly what they do. That child has learned that drawing is really, really fun and it makes them feel good about themselves. So they do it all the time. Each day drawing a new picture and a new picture and a new picture and getting a little bit better at it every time, but really enjoying the process. Now, after a few years of this, that child's growing up and starting to get really quite good at drawing. They've put so many hours into practicing this that their drawings are starting to get really awesome. They're starting to develop their own unique artistic style, and people are starting to pay attention. You know, a couple of friends have given them some money for commissions. They might get their first opportunity to have an exhibition at a local art gallery. But remember, none of this happened overnight, and it all started with this very simple stick figure drawing of a dog. Now I want to ask you to go back to the very start of this story, back to this first drawing of a dog when the child finishes their picture and takes it to their parent seeking some approval. Now imagine in this second version of this story that the parent reacted very differently. Okay, imagine the parent said, oh wow, that's really bad. Yeah, that's like a stick drawing. It doesn't even look like a dog. You've just got, like sticks for legs and the ears are really out of proportion and kind of wonky. You've used blue. Why would you use blue? Dogs aren't blue. Here, let me show you what a good picture of a dog looks like. I'm going to go Google dog painting, and that the parent brings up an image of a dog painting by an artist that's probably had 20 years experience, and it's beautiful and amazing. And they show that picture to that little kid and go, see, this is what it should look like. Yours is really bad. How do you think that's going to make that kid feel? Bloody awful, right? Do you think that kid's going to rush back to their pencils and start practicing their drawing all day? No, they're probably never going to pick up a pencil again. Now, in this story, it is so obvious of the right way that the parent needs to react to encourage that child to learn and grow. Yet this is what we don't do. That parent is your editor, your brain. When you try and be creative and you create something that's, your first shot at something, your brain tends to shut it down and tells you it's bad, all the things that are wrong with it, and it brings up another person's work as a comparison. It makes these comparisons and points out all the reasons why your work is not as good as this other person's. And we wonder why we get writer's block. That's how we treat our inner artist. But imagine if we could train our editor to be like the parent in the first version of this story. To encourage us, to encourage our creativity, to encourage our inner artist, to enjoy the process and celebrate getting a little bit better each time. If you can do that, it doesn't happen overnight, but it also won't take that long for you to get really good. So next time you're trying to be creative, next time you're writing a song, drawing a picture, writing a poem, whatever it is you're doing, and you catch yourself, your editor, being really critical, I want you to remember this story. You have the power to choose how you talk to yourself. Now, you can either shut yourself down or be really encouraging. The choice is yours. Progress, not perfection. When doing anything in life, particularly when it comes to learning a new skill, try and shift your goal to progress, not perfection. We want the goal to be progress, okay? Now, this means do not compare yourself to others. Rule number 1, only compare yourself to yourself yesterday. Aim to improve a little bit each day, just like that little kid when he was drawing. Each day got a little bit better, and celebrate those little wins. Be proud of yourself. If you notice improvement, celebrate that. That's going to give you energy to keep going. Acknowledge your mistakes and focus on achievement. So we don't want to ignore our mistakes. Mistakes are what gives us information on how we can improve. So we definitely want to take note of those, but we don't want to dwell on them. Okay, so take note, okay, well maybe I need to get a little bit better at writing chorus melodies. This melody isn't really as good as I think it could be. Cool, noted. Now move on. Focus on the achievement, the things that you actually did manage to do. So, well, I still managed to finish a song though. That's pretty cool. A couple of weeks ago, I had only written 3 songs and now I've written 10. It is amazing how we can just ignore all our achievements and all we seem to focus on is those mistakes. So you want to flip that around. And lastly, encourage your inner artist as if he or she is a child. That inner artist is learning, they're doing their best, and you want to make them feel safe to create and explore without getting ridiculed or yelled at. And chances are, if you're anything like I was, you've spent a lot of years being really mean to that child. So this is going to take a little bit of time and practice and patience before you can give that child their confidence back. Okay? And that means focusing on progress, not perfection.